A former Pfizer worker has turned whistleblower, suggesting that some of the practices at vaccine clinical trials were substandard. Let's have an extremely careful, cautious, law-abiding, regulation-observing look at this story now. Hello there, you 4.5 million shimmering, sparkling starscapes of wonder. Let us double down on this piece of information. In fact, no, I'm not going to be doing anything incautious because this is a story about a Pfizer whistleblower. So let's approach it carefully because the channels upon which we broadcast have regulations around subjects like this. And do you know what's a mad coincidence? I have no opinions around medical matters, policies around medical matters. I'm sort of basically like a glass funnel with information coming through it like this.
A report raises some questions about the results from a research company helping with the Pfizer trial.
Now, among the issues in the British Medical Journal story include not storing the vaccine at the right temperature and incorrectly labeling some specimens.
Most of this information comes from the British Medical Journal, which is obviously an industry journal for the British medical profession. So you'd imagine that it's been judiciously looked at.
The report in the British Medical Journal lays out those issues raised by a now former employee of Ventavia. That company was under contract to help with Pfizer's phase 3 trials, raising questions about the integrity of the numbers.
Brooke Jackson, a regional director who was employed by Ventavia Research Group, told the British Medical Journal that the company falsified data, unblinded patients, employed inadequately trained vaccinators, and was slow to follow up on adverse events. But otherwise okay? Despite Jackson repeatedly notifying Ventavia of the problems, the company reportedly took no corrective action. This prompted Jackson to send a complaint by email to the US Food and Drug Administration. Any luck there at the FDA? How's that funded again? The country's top regulatory body in September 2020, but less than 24 hours Ventavia fired her. In a further surprise, the FDA did not follow up on Jackson's complaint either. Now, of course, at this point, you have to recognise that anybody can say anything, and that don't make it true just because it's being said. But what's interesting, I would say, is the reporting so far, or lack thereof, and the unwillingness, apparently, of the FDA to investigate it as laid out by the BMJ in the source that I'm using here. In a further surprise, the FDA did not follow up on Jackson's complaint either. Though the regulator claims it doesn't have the manpower to actively monitor and investigate all clinical trials. Oh no, you're only the FDA. You're only there to regulate clinical trials. We don't have the manpower or woman power, because we're not sexist, to look at everything that's going on in the world of food or drugs or administrating. Well, why are you called that then? I don't have the manpower to answer your knee-jerk accusations that we're not running the FDA properly. Or woman power, sorry, we're not sexist. One person told the BMJ she was surprised that the agency didn't inspect Ventavia even after an employee had filed a complaint. You would think if there's a specific and credible complaint that they would have to investigate that. No, we don't have the manpower or woman power to investigate complaints made by employees. What are you doing? Well, you know that there's money comes, funding money. We count that. Oh, yeah, we got the manpower and woman power for that. The revelations reported in the BMJ article are limited to 3 of more than 150 trial sites, which enrolled only 1,000 of around the 44,000 overall participants. So in the terms described here, we're looking at a limited case study. However, the problems at Ventavia could have wider ramifications, including on efficacy data, which would obviously be a concern and is the reason why the BMJ are boldly reporting this. Another employee, on condition of anonymity, told BMJ that Ventavia didn't have enough people to collect... Why don't anyone have enough manpower to do their bloody jobs? We don't have the manpower to regulate. We don't have the manpower to collect swabs. We don't have the manpower to run proper clinical trials. I mean, I'm not an expert in economics, but I was of the understanding that Pfizer had profited quite heavily in the last 20 months or so. They're surely in the position to employ someone to go and get the swabs. Collect swabs from trial participants who had reported symptoms that were consistent with COVID-19. The revelation suggests the data could have been skewed by samples not being collected from participants who had COVID-like symptoms. Jackson, a regional director, had 15 years of experience in clinical research, coordination and management at the time of her employment at Ventavia. However, her stint at the company only lasted 2 weeks in September 2020, in which time she said she witnessed poor laboratory management, patient safety concerns and data integrity issues. According to her, her superiors may have been aware of these problems even before she was hired. According to BMJ, in a list of action items circulated among Ventavia leaders in early August 2020, one executive reportedly identified 3 site staff members with whom the company needed to go over e-diary issues, falsifying data, etc. Oh, that don't seem good. One of the staff members was also verbally counselled for changing data and not noting late entry, a note indicated according to the report. Jackson also recorded a meeting with 2 Ventavia directors in late September 2020, in which one of them admitted that the company wasn't able to quantify the types and number of errors they were finding when examining the trial paperwork for quality control. The executive adds, "In my mind, it's something new every day." After realising that Ventavia was unlikely to perform a course correcting, Jackson said she was frustrated and documented several matters late one night, taking photos on her mobile phone. She said she also provided dozens of internal company documents, photos and audio recordings and emails to the BMJ. Well, then the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? Either those things demonstrate the validity of those accusations or they don't. And if they do, then I imagine that would be cause for investigation. And if they don't, then this is simply nothing to worry about. And I'd have to say, sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to doubt your story there. Sorry. On September the 25th, 2020, which was the following morning, Jackson says she called the FDA and warned the agency about unsound practices in Pfizer's clinical trial at Ventavia and also articulated her concerns in an email complaint. Ventavia fired her that afternoon. Ooh. According to BMJ, she then listed dozens of concerns, including the following, quoted verbatim. 1. Participants placed in a hallway after injection and not being monitored by clinical staff. Get in the hallway. Help me, I don't feel well. You'll be all right. 2. Lack of timely follow-up of patients who experienced adverse effects. Well, that's obviously, what's the point in a clinical trial if you're not going to report adverse effects? 3. Protocol deviations not being reported. That means what, they're not doing it according to the manner in which was agreed. 4. Vaccines not being stored at proper temperatures. I'll just keep them in my pocket. 5. Mislabeled laboratory specimens. And 6. Targeting Ventavia staff for reporting these type of problems. Again, it's important to reiterate that these are at this point accusations that are not substantiated, but if they were proven to be true, that would certainly, surely, in my mind at least, be cause for concern. But I don't know, what do you think about it? Put it down in the comments. Is it safe to discuss things like that? Does it concern you? How should this be investigated? I suppose the BMJ must be applauded for reporting this because, let's face it, there's a lot of concern and doubt around the legislation and regulations that this pandemic has brought about, and having organisations that are credible like the BMJ reporting on it is certainly a positive thing, isn't it? That's what you want, really, is for organisations that are willing to truly approach something objectively, not like, this is really bad, I don't trust no one, or this is really good, let's not question it or think about it, but right, well, let's look at the evidence. Come on, let's not be hysterical. We're trying to deal with some stuff here. This is not the realm of fantasy and mad imagination. Let's try and deal with this situation so that we can come to conclusions that are rational and scientific. That's what you need. So the BMJ deserve respect and plaudits for that. And I'm glad because we can use a credible source for our own reporting. And if you've got a problem with it, take it up with them. Jackson received an email from the FDA acknowledging her complaint. The email said the agency couldn't comment on any investigation that might result from her complaint. She reportedly also received a call from an FDA inspector a few days later to discuss a report, but hasn't heard anything more since. Separately, Pfizer had submitted documents to the FDA that included details of a briefing on December the 10th, 2020, but didn't mention the problems at the Ventavia sites. This is where regulation is a necessity. Often when we talk about regulatory authority, we feel, no, I don't want people regulating my life. But you do want people regulating powerful organisations. And, by the way, there is nuance and the ability to mediate and manage regulation between, you living your own life, your own religious and sexual, cultural practices, and a bloody great big organisation that the actions of whom impact an entire planet. There needs to be a different scale. Of course there does. The FDA published a summary of its inspection of the company's trial in August 2021 after it had given the Pfizer vaccine full, not emergency, authorization. According to BMJ, the FDA officials had inspected 9 of the trial's 153 sites. None were Ventavia's. There was 153 sites and they only examined 9. So that means 142 sites, and they're probably all right. That's not good enough. It's not even worth doing the inspection. I bet they didn't even go in the building. Looks like a nice building, doesn't it? What's it called again? That's the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Yeah, looks all right from here. Come on, let's get down to wet market.
People are going to use this to push a political position because that's what they're interested in. What was this process like? Was this good data?
Paul D. Thacker, the author of the BMJ article, is dead now. Also spoke to two former Ventavia employees who he wrote confirmed the broad aspects of Jackson's complaint. Oh, so that's some verification. One person who had worked on over 50 clinical trials in her career said she had never experienced such a helter-skelter working. Helter-skelter. That is not the atmosphere you want at a laboratory. And here is where we do that stuff with the mice. Brilliant. We keep all the pipettes and Bunsen burners over there. Look, and there's the white lab coats. And what's this whirling mad vortex? That's where we do the real work, baby! Helter-skelter! Helter-skelter work environment as the Ventavia managed Pfizer trial sites. I don't think it was good, clean data, the employee said, of the numbers Ventavia generated for the Pfizer trial. It's a crazy mess. But, again, unverified at this point. The second employee also described the environment at Ventavia as unlike anything she'd experienced in 20 years of research. She added that after Jackson was fired, Pfizer had been notified of problems at Ventavia and that an audit took place. Pfizer has since hired Ventavia as a research subcontractor for 4 other vaccine clinical trials. These include trials on COVID-19 vaccines for children and young adults, pregnant women, and a booster dose. Well, let's not jump too deeply into that. We'll wait for further information to funnel down to us regarding that issue, over which I have not sufficient expertise to comment. But I'm so glad you have enough expertise to have an opinion, surely something all of us are entitled to. And let me know yours in the comment below. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs up. And if you really enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. It's a little bit like it. And if you want to learn to meditate, go over and subscribe to my Awakening side channel. Sign up to my mailing list so I can stay in constant contact with you and we can communicate the whole time. And if you're in England, I'm performing all over from January to May next year. Come see me live. But most importantly of all, stay free.